Welcome to In the News for October 15th, 2021. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
This is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. Hey, Brett. How you doing?
Jeff, I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me this morning. The reviews are in. The reviews are in, and you linked to quite a number of the reviews for the brand new, soon to be delivered for many people, Apple Watch Series 7.
Some people will be getting their new Apple Watches today. I'm not. Mine's coming in a few weeks. The one that I went is, in fact, just before we started our show, I jumped to see if the stainless steel model that is going to be delivered to me in early November would be available in my local Apple store here in New Orleans. And the answer is no. The answer is we're happy to sell you one that you'll get like December 1st. I'm like, okay, I'll just stick with the pre-order I have now. So
no, thank you.
But some people are getting them today, and some people got them about a week ago, which is the reviews that I linked to. Apple gave a couple of folks. And, looking at those reviews was really interesting to me, Brett, because it really came down. There were two things that jumped out at me. One of that jumped out at me is some people approached their review from what I thought was the wrong starting point, which was, should you upgrade, from last year's Apple Watch to this year's? Apple Watches, you and I have talked about this, is not something that people need to get every model. Some people get the new iPhone every year, but you don't. I think that the step one is a personal decision. You just have to decide, you have an Apple Watch. Do you feel like you're ready for an upgrade because it's old or for whatever reason? Once you get to the point of, now I'm starting to feel like I'm ready, then you can decide, is this the one that I want to get? And so then when you get to that second question, the reviewers say the same thing and come at it from two angles. Everybody says that the screen is bigger. That's the big change, is that there's more usable screen space. And some people have said, oh, it's just the same as the Apple Watch 6 with more screen space. And some people have said, wow, you get everything that you get with the prior Apple Watch, but you get more screen space. And, it's all just a matter of emphasis. And so like on the one hand, you have John Gruber, who you were just linking to, who has this picture that it does a nice job. If you scroll down a little bit.
Yeah, that's great.
When he shows the three screens side by side, you're like, wow, that's a real change. I mean, that's
a big difference.
And considering that how small your wrist is, there's only so much space for a screen there. Having more screen space, having the buttons easier to tap, having things easier to read, you can have larger font sizes, like that's huge. And then you have other people, and people that did good reviews, like one I didn't even link to today was Marques Brownlee, who had a good video review.
Yeah,
he was like, it's just iPhone 6 and bigger, so does that matter to you? And so here's the real thing. I don't know. I think it's going to matter a lot to me, but I'm going to have to try it and see whether I'm like, bigger screen, whatever, or I'm going to be like, bigger screen, yay! So that's the big thing.
Remind us again, what are you coming from? Was it a Series 5?
So I've got the Series 5, and on that first question, why am I upgrading? The reason I'm upgrading is that the battery life for me, I really use my Apple Watch a lot every day. I use the activity circles every day. And if you're a big Apple Watch user, the battery life just starts to wear down over time. And so for me, I'm putting my watch on every morning. It depends on what time I get up. Sometimes, 6:30, 7:30, whenever. And then by 9 o'clock at night, I'm often being told, you're out of battery power, you're at 10% or 5%. And that doesn't work for me because I want to have those last few hours. I often will, jump on the treadmill or do Apple Fitness Plus at night. So it's a pain for me to have to then charge again and get back on. And so that's the big reason for me to upgrade is battery life. And also I'm very excited about, seeing the larger screen and the speed increase that came with last year's Apple Watch. So that's my personal reason for upgrading. And if I had something that was even older than the Apple Watch, then I'd be even more excited about the upgrade. Watch Series 5.
And David Sparks are almost exactly in parallel there, right? He had a great, just little small post as he normally does on MikeSparky.com. And he says, to be honest, I'm most looking forward to having a watch with a fresh battery. I wear my Apple Watch every day and use it aggressively. That's an interesting use of that word, but it's exactly what you're saying, Jeff. It's
exactly. You could slap my name on this post, and it's the same thing. Yeah.
He's like, I'm now to the point I often need a midday charge to get to the end of the day.
Amen.
And I'm with both of you. I've got a 5, and I am very seriously considering. I didn't jump on the pre-order bandwagon, but I am seriously considering. A lot of us, it sounds like, just did not go with the Series 6 that came out last year. But now that we have been using the 5 for as long as we have, we are ready to leapfrog 6 and go directly to the 7.
Yeah. But for me, besides the screen, though, what I'm really looking forward to is when you do need to charge it, and hopefully I won't with the fresh battery very often, but when you do need to charge it, the fact that it charges 30% faster, That sounds great. And also, I often do, and I'm sure you do too, Brett, the thing where I'm talking to somebody and I'll just sort of glance down and look at my watch to see the time or to see what time my next appointment starts or something like that. And the idea that when you glance at your watch, that it's brighter. It's not any brighter when you pick it up and look at it, but when you glance down at your watch, it's brighter and easier to see. That sounds really nice to me. So, again, if I was perfectly happy with my current Apple Watch, no, I don't know that I would upgrade for that feature. But if that's another bonus feature that I get, sure, sign me up. I'm ready.
One of the reviews that you linked to, which I have to tell you, the video to me was one of my favorite, is from The Verge. It's Dieter Bohn.
Dieter Bohn does a great job with these videos. Yeah. They're really, really good.
At the very beginning, like this is the one that I would probably say, Jeff, thanks to you, I would say this is the review. You need to watch this video. Even in just the first like 3 or 4 minutes, he does a great job of like, okay, are you happy with the watch you have right now? Do you have any cracks on the screen? Have you complained about the battery? Are you upset that, it's not just as responsive as it was? And he's like, if you answered no to any of those questions, then don't worry about it. Don't upgrade. It's fine. You don't need to. I just like the way he kind of put it in sort of a logical sense. Like that helped me to understand, although as a little bit of a geek, I had already decided I wanted to upgrade anyway. But this is a good video for folks to see. This is on theverge.com from Dieter Bohn.
In fact, if you're going to watch 2 videos, this is one of them, because the quality of the video from all the Verge video qualities are amazing. They have incredible cameras. It's really well produced. It's really nice. And if there's a second video I really liked, it was iJustine's video.
Yeah,
because
she's always
she also has really high quality. And Justine, when she's excited about something, her enthusiasm just bleeds through the screen to you. So if you're going to pick 2 to watch, those are the 2 I really enjoy.
Speaking of what she's excited about, what do you call this band that she's so excited about? Is this?
And I have
like
never
the magnetic leather.
It's magnetic leather.
She was very excited.
In fact, and she said maybe it came out last year, and I guess because of the pandemic, I don't go into an Apple store very often. I have never sometimes these bands that I don't own, I've actually tried them in the Apple store. This one I have never even tried before. So that's interesting.
She was very, very happy about this.
Because I like I have the one that I wear at work is the Milanese loop, and I love the fact that it's sort of magnetic. You can make it tighter or shorter.
Yes.
So the idea of a magnetic watch band, I've had this Milanese loop one maybe since my very first Apple Watch, Brett. It's been a very long time, and I like it. So having that same function, but in an interesting look, it looks pretty cool. So I might have to check that one out one day.
So one thing quickly I want to ask you about, because I've seen a few people mention this, but I don't think it's become that big of a deal yet, maybe because no one has their Series 7. But you talked about the charging, and it's supposed to charge faster. And one of the reasons apparently that it's charging faster is because the charger that comes with the Apple Watch now does not have a USB-A connector, right? It has a USB-C connector on it, which means that in order to charge this, I don't believe Apple is including the little brick that plugs into the actual wall, right?
Correct.
So in order to make sure you charge this, you've got to have your own brick. That it can't be one that came with an older iPhone, for example, right? It has to be something new. Like we've talked about the Anchor options, right, before, where you can plug it into the wall and then it has a USB-C connector in there. Now, for us that have a lot of different devices, and you've got an iPad that has USB-C, and then you have an iPhone, so a lot of us have a bunch of these different cables, but I just wonder if that's going to cause anybody some consternation. If they don't, like you may have to make another purchase if you don't already have some kind of a wall brick that can handle USB-C, or do you not think it's going to be a big deal?
Yeah. And I've been thinking about this because one of the things that I'm thinking of is, I currently have, and by the way, this new Apple Watch Series 7 will work with the older chargers. So if you're upgrading from a prior Apple Watch, you can use the older charger, you just don't get the fast charging. So like the number one place that I charge my Apple Watch every night is on the bedstand, because I take it off before I go to sleep and I put it on when I wake up in the morning. And it occurs to me that although I use that the most, I don't know that I need that to be fast charging, because by definition, I'm putting it on to go to sleep and leave it there overnight. Now, if I was going to start wearing my watch to sleep and to use some of the sleep tracking stuff, well, then maybe I would want to have that one be fast and charge fast during the morning while I'm taking a shower and getting dressed and stuff. But so that's when I have the new Apple Watch, I'm going to decide where do I want to use this faster charger. I haven't decided. Maybe I want to have it at my computer so that if I ever do want to give it a boost midday or at night, that's where I get the fastest charge. I haven't decided yet. Or maybe I'll just, put maybe I'll just replace all of them, and anywhere in my house that I possibly charge, I'll just, put a new cord. I don't know.
So one other thing quickly that I thought was hilarious in this Verge review from Dieter Bohn, one of the things that he was most excited about was multiple timers available now.
Which everybody has
I love
now.
this.
That's not,
I was going to say, that's from watchOS 8, right? In other words, I can
is.
access that on my 5, and I think that I have, because it's funny, of all the things that the Apple Watch can do, honestly, Jeff, that is the thing that I loved having the most, especially if I'm like outside grilling or smoking something, or if I'm in the kitchen cooking. I mean, it's just so great to be able to tell my watch to set a timer. And now that I can have multiple timers on there, it's such a tiny thing, but it's a pretty big deal. Dieter was very excited about that. So that's available even if you have a Series 5, correct?
Yeah,
or a 6 or anything else.
Correct. And my understanding is that the iPhone still only has the one timer on it. You can't have multiple timers at one time on the iPhone, but you can on the Apple Watch, which is curious. It's not like, that technology is so futuristic they can't possibly add it to the. Having said that, I will tell you, like, there are few things in life that the Apple Watch is the number one way that I use it. And timers, I mean, I guess sometimes I do a timer on my iPhone, but 99% of the time when I want a timer, I'm doing it on my watch. Because like you say, I'm in the kitchen, I'm doing stuff, whatever it is that in the watch is right there on your wrist. It's the best place to have a timer. So I guess if Apple only had enough employee resources to put the multiple timers on one device,
more timers,
the right one. But you think that maybe Apple could hire one more person and they could add multiple timers to the iPhone and other devices.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Okay, so the last thing quickly, I just wanted to point out at the bottom of your post, as you are always want to do, which is I look forward to, you put a video. You posted a video, and this one comes from Apple themselves. It's the 10 helpful Apple Watch tips. Good little quick little video. I think it's maybe 5 or 6 minutes or something like that. I think I knew most of them, but there's always one in there that I was like, oh, I did not know that was as easy to do on there. So anyway, thanks for linking to that.
Yeah,
and,
I almost didn't put that link in there today because just knowing that this came from Apple support, I thought it was going to be too simplistic. And I was like, I don't want to put something this basic in my post today. And then I was like, well, let me take a look at this video. And like you, I learned a couple things. So I'm like, okay, well, so much for me, just, pretending like I'm so sophisticated that I would already know everything. I did not know everything. So shame on me. And it's a good video.
All right, so moving away from the Apple Watch, how about let's talk about the AirTags in what is such an incredibly amazing story, for crying out loud. I didn't see this earlier this week, but thanks for linking to this because I was kind of giggling about it as I was reading, but then I was also at some points I was a little aghast at it. But go ahead and tell the story. This is Dude, Where's My Car? I love it.
Well, first of all, the person who wrote the story at Michael Potuck at 9 to 5 Mac, it's very cute that you notice on the car he replaced the wheels with AirTags. Picture.
That's I love that
with the Photoshop job. That's very cute. But this is a bizarre story where somebody had a car stolen. And of course, his car was stolen because he left his keys in it. I mean, and he admits it. He's like, I was an idiot.
He does.
He admits it. He's like, I live in Chicago. I don't live in a small town. I need to not leave my keys.
Should have done better.
For goodness sakes. But he realized after his car was stolen, and not even the first day, he's like, oh yeah, I put an AirTag in there. And so a couple of days after the car was stolen, he found the AirTags. He used the Find My app on his iPhone, and it eventually showed up that his missing AirTag device was in a parking lot of a Walmart. And when he went there, it was no longer in his car. Like somebody had taken the AirTag and put it and just tossed it onto the parking lot. And let me just pause right there. He doesn't explain in this story why, but I think I know why. And I think it's something you and I have talked about many episodes ago, which is that if you take one of your AirTags and you put it with somebody else, like for example, somebody else's car,
right?
When it hasn't been near you for a while, for like a few days, it will actually start to beep to alert that person.
Exactly.
And it does that as a safety feature, just in case you were trying to stalk that person. But in this case, of course, it was his own car. It's just that somebody stole it. So my guess is that the thief, after a few days, heard something beeping in the car, and he must have looked in the glove compartment and found the AirTag and just tossed it out into the Walmart parking lot. So the reason
I think he put it in the sunglass case. He had the AirTag in the sunglass case, like up in the ceiling.
Now, the reason that justice prevailed here is because the thief was, the thief came back to the scene of not really the scene of the crime because it's not where it was stolen, but while the guy happened to be in the Walmart parking lot looking at his AirTag on the ground, the thief, came back. to that same parking lot. And it's a sad story because apparently this was somebody who was probably homeless, living in the car, drug user, maybe he was just living in the car, in the parking lot. So, the details get to be, remind you of the problems of, society today, if people have fallen out of the mainstream. But the guy was happy to get his car back. And, I have not put an AirTag in my car. Maybe I should. I guess I've just assumed that maybe nobody's going to steal my car, and I'm certainly never going to leave car keys in it. But I guess it could happen.
Well, he just said that, he got like the 4-pack or the 3-pack, right? Whatever it is that Apple shares. Yeah. So, and he's like, I got an extra one. Like, I didn't know what to do with it. And he just said, I put it in the car, and I just thought that was really nifty. Like, if you can get a 4-pack, which I think I saw some good deals on, over the last week or so, that, you can get it for a little bit of a discount. It's like, if you're using 2 or 3 and you just need to know somewhere else to put it, why not? At least if nothing else, it's in your car. It's somewhere that, and in this case, it really worked out well for the gentleman here.
Yeah. But, whether we're talking about AirTag specifically or any of Apple's uses of Find My, the fact that you can find the AirPods Pro case and stuff like that. I mean, this is all good stuff, because one of the things that I've noticed with iOS 15 is that I now get notifications on my Apple Watch if I have left behind something. Let me give you an example. So, for example, the bag, I have this Tom Bin Ristretto bag that I carry around that's got my iPad in it.
Love Tom Bin.
And I have an AirTag in there, right? And so I have told my app that if that AirTag associated with the bag and me, which is where my iPhone is, if they're separated,
you're separated.
The AirTag is at my house, that's totally fine. And if it AirTags at my office, like, for example, I leave my office to go walk to lunch someplace, that's totally fine too. But except for those 2 places, if you notice that we're separated, give me a little alert. And that's what it does. And so, for example, the other day I went to go watch my daughter play a volleyball game, and I left my bag in my car with my iPad in it. And I went off to the gymnasium to watch the volleyball game. Right. And sure enough, in a minute or two, it didn't, I have the sound turned off, so it didn't bother me. But just on the face of my iPhone, it's like, oh, by the way, I noticed that you're separated from the AirTag that you use for this. And that was good to know, because although I actually intended that, I thought it was fine in my car, I left it in a safe spot. But if I had left it not in my car, but at a Starbucks or something like that, I would want to be notified, hey, this is not one of the places that you said it's okay to leave this device. So I really like this new feature in iOS 15, and you can tweak it. But if you have, anything that has an AirTag or something like an AirPods Pro that has this ability as well, tweak the Find My settings for the devices. Choose the places that you're okay with leaving something in that spot, and then it may help you if you forget something somewhere.
I don't know if I knew you could get it that focused or that customized, Jeff. That's really helpful to know. And you linked to another great story here about the same thing, right? Getting notified if you leave your AirPods Pro behind. That was after with iOS 15 and a firmware update for AirPods Pro that we talked about last week. But that's really neat that you can customize it to that degree. Really cool on there. So
and it's for location. So like I'm looking in my Find My app. I'm specifically saying, for example, right now I have the very nice camera that I own, which is a Nikon DSLR camera. I have an AirTag in my camera bag, because that's an expensive camera. I wouldn't want somebody. And so I see right here that I have it turned on to notify me if I left it behind, except when it's left at home. And that one, I never even bring my camera to the office, so I didn't need to add my office to that. But device by device, you can decide it's okay if I left this at my parents' house, or it's okay if I left this in my own house. But any place else that it's left behind, you should let me know. And that's a nice feature.
That's great. I'm glad that you linked to those stories. Well, another thing, I know we're not going to talk about this just a whole lot because, frankly, we don't know what to talk about yet, but Apple did announce last week that they're going to have yet another event, and that's coming up on Monday, October 18th. So
I think, Brett, a new iPhone? What do you think? Probably not a new iPhone.
After 3 weeks, and probably not a new Apple Watch, I'm guessing. Those can be our safe bets on that, right? Most people that we've been talking about or that we listen to and watch are suspecting that Apple is going to announce improvements or updates or even new Macs, right?
Yeah.
MacBook Pros.
Yeah, more specifically the MacBook
desktop.
Pro. For sure,
Right.
I think this is a MacBook Pro event, and maybe some other
Yeah.
Macs as well. Apple has their new processor chips, the whatever they call it. They have different
whatever
names.
they're going to call
the
it.
new chips they're the one that they make themselves, not the Intel chips that they've been using in the iPhone for a very long time. It allows them to make much faster Macs. They came out with their first round a year ago. They're going to have new ones. I mean, when you call your event Unleashed, and when you use this graphic that looks like you are, in the Millennium Falcon going through hyperspace, it's the presumption.
Or the Star Trek.
That's
either
true,
one.
Since
it could be Star Trek or Star Wars. Either way.
Since Captain Kirk did go to space this week, we have to think about us.
Yes, exactly.
But, so presumably it's going to be much faster Macs, which is great. And so I actually don't. I know that you do, Brett. I actually don't use a portable Mac. I have an iMac at home.
I do. Yeah.
And the last time that I used, because my office switched to PCs almost 20 years ago, so we used to be a Mac shop. The last time that I used a portable Mac computer was in the early 2000s when I had an iBook. Do you remember those? The iBooks. So that's how long it's been since. But I know that you and my wife and many. I mean, this is the most popular. The most popular model of Mac that Apple sells is a laptop, and it looks like the laptops are going to get much better on Monday, which is great.
I have been using I've been using an M1 MacBook Pro for the last year, and Jeff, it's just unbelievable. The battery life, the speed, the processing power on there. Okay, we don't need to go off on that because you can tell I get too excited. But quickly, I would just say, if we want to tie it to an iPhone story here, it's the same thing we talked about this last time. If you go and visit the Apple Events website, which is apple.com/apple-events, talking about going into hyperspace, if you have I guess it's a more recent model. I don't know if you have to have the 12. Probably
I don't know which model it is, but if you have a recent iPhone or Apple or iPad,
right, you visit this website, and literally when you tap on this little graphic that you can see on the screen here, which looks like you're going into the Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive or hyperspeed. Well, I forget which one they call it, but you literally go in, and it's not that exciting, but it's just really kind of cool. If you're looking at some kind of a scenery out there, you can literally go into this hyperdrive mode, and anyway, it's kind of neat. Apple seems to be doing this for the last 2 or 3 events that they've had. This is going to be an all online event. It's a recorded video, and we're hopeful to see, who knows, maybe they'll talk about some additional AirPods that they're going to release or something else. Sometimes Apple can surprise us, that's for sure.
There's been rumors of new AirPods for a while, and if Apple does have a new version of the AirPod, wouldn't this be a great time to introduce it right before the holiday buying season?
Absolutely.
So it could happen. We'll find out.
We'll find out. And then you and I will talk about it next Friday on the podcast. Sure. Okay, a quick bonus here, which I just think is great that you linked to this. I didn't even think about it, and oh my goodness, I wish I was still in school now for this. So we've talked about iOS 15 coming with the live text functionality, which is absolutely amazing and extremely helpful, I think, for business professionals, legal professionals, because now I can take a picture of a sign that has lettering or a document or anything, frankly, and I can copy the text. Editable text from that picture. It's amazing. I didn't even think about it from the case of the story that you linked to here from Cult of Mac, is that this little video here, somebody like 2 or 3 rows up, right? It looks like in a college room, or maybe it's high school. I'm not really
classroom,
sure. And they zoom in to a classmate's computer screen where they're taking notes with their iPhone, and they take a picture of it, and then they can copy those notes. It's almost like
as soon as you take
the
picture, you can instantly copy the text and put it into your own notes. And I thought this was cute. Not that the article is like you're stealing notes from somebody else,
right?
Which that's cute. But I thought it was a good reminder that live text works wherever you. I mean, any time that you're taking a picture and there is some text in the outside world, you can just very quickly copy that text and paste it somewhere. Or you can search for that text. Just the other day, Brett, my wife and I went out to, it was our wedding anniversary. We went out to dinner at this restaurant that we like to eat outside, because we're still trying to eat outside with COVID and stuff. And I was thinking, I wonder when's the last time that we were here. And I was like, sometimes when we go out to a nice restaurant, I'll like take a picture of the restaurant or the sign or something just to remind us that we went there. And so sure enough, I did a search on my iPhone for the name of the restaurant, and I instantly found a picture from the last time we were there, because I had taken a picture of the sign years ago, right?
Ooh,
and
interesting.
Sure enough, the iPhone knows how to read things, and so when I type the word, it's like, oh, here it is. So
wow.
live text is really, really useful. And this example, even if you're not going to use it to steal somebody else's notes, my hope is that it reminds you of all the possible uses of live text.
So, hey, so just a second, I want to make sure I understand. You did a search on your iPhone, like in the search box, right? In the Siri
so
search
here's
box,
the deal,
and it searches your photos. Is that right?
Apple doesn't. I wish Apple did this differently. If you're in the Photos app and you search, you don't find things based on text. But if you are on the home page of the home screen of your iPhone, and you search for a word, it will say, oh, well, here's the place I found this word. One of the places that I found it is in your Files app. One of the places I found it is in your Contacts. One of the places I found it is in Photos from apps. And if I do that and I then go, then I can actually find it. Now, why would they put that search feature only when you search from the home screen and not in Photos?
Interesting.
That makes no sense to me. They've already done the hard work of making the search work. So my hope is that they update the Photos app sometime soon so that I can search in the Photos app and have it find text of just photos. It's a little bit of work now, but hey, it works. Yeah. I mean, it only took me a second or two to do, and it worked. So,
well, that's almost like a bonus tip, because speaking of tips, oh my goodness, my friend, I love your post this week that you took, because I hope everybody understands as they're listening to this. When we started this In the News podcast, we knew we wanted to talk about all of the stories that you link to every Friday, because you've been doing this for many, many years, Jeff. And I've always looked forward to it every Friday, to your In the News post. But as we did the podcast, I thought, well, it would be neat at the end, because every time you and I have spoken together or presented to a group, everybody always likes to have some additional tips. Everybody likes to share tips, and we love to share tips with people. Yeah. And so now that we are we didn't do it on the first episode. So now we are 22 episodes in now with today, right? That we have each shared a tip, and you collected all of them. So there is a post this week on iPhone JD that you did, where it's all the tips that we have covered so far on the In the News podcast. It's 42 tips on here. Yeah, Thank you for doing this and compiling. This is great, Jeff.
It's fun to look through them. I mean, I challenge you, if you go through that post, I don't care how much of an expert user you consider yourself to be, you will find something. And folks should know that, I spend time on YouTube, Brad. Throughout the week, I'm always thinking to myself, well, what's a good tip for this week?
I do.
Sometimes, we've done the easy ones. I mean, now we're at the point where we're trying to think of things that are more complicated, more sophisticated, more useful.
Right.
So yeah, this is a long list. And on the post, I put the timestamp in. So if you want to jump directly to the point in the YouTube video where we discussed that particular tip. Not that you would want to miss the rest of the episode, which is full of delightful information. But if you want to jump directly to the tip, I mean, you probably don't want to go back and watch episode 3 right now. It's been a long time.
Right.
And that episode
but the tips are there.
Is not timely. But the tips are still timely, even if our discussion of what's going to happen at WWDC may no longer be timely. So yeah.
And thanks for putting the timestamps in there. And by the way, you mentioned this as well. Depending on what podcatcher, whatever app that you use for your podcast, like you and I both like Overcast quite a bit, but I know there is what was it? It's a red icon. There's a couple of different ones. I mean, obviously Apple has their own podcast app, but I make sure that we have chapter markers in there. So if you wanted to listen to those, you could always jump directly to the part where I put a chapter marker in for my tip and for your tip. So you can always jump ahead or jump back or so into those tips if you're listening to the audio version of that. So
yeah, according to our statistics, in case you're curious, the number one app that people use by far to listen to this podcast is Overcast.
Good.
Okay. It's like,
perfect.
Two-thirds of people use Overcast. And then a lot of people use Apple Podcasts. And then the third most popular one is the Pocket Cast app, which
I've
never used Pocket Cast before.
Yeah, a lot of people like that. I have, but I switched to Overcast a long time ago.
Yeah. So, but yeah, those chapter markers are really nice. I use that when I'm listening to other podcasts all the time, because there are some podcasts that I love so much that I want to listen to every word of it. But then there are some that like I'm getting behind on podcasts, and I'm like, as much as I would love to listen to the whole thing, what I really want to hear is their discussion of X.
Yes,
and I love when they have chapter markers and I can just jump directly there. Or
and
sometimes after I've listened to a podcast, like a week later, I'll be like, oh, I remember that so-and-so, like the podcast host was describing this feature but now I want to sit here and do it, and I can't remember what he said. So you
What
go
did he
back
say?
and you jump directly to that chapter, and you're like, that's what he said.
That's it. So, by the way, just quickly, here's a bonus tip, and I think I got another bonus tip too. If most people are using Overcast, once it starts playing, there's a little tiny circle with like, I think 3 lines in it, right? Over to the left, Jeff. So if you're listening to the podcast, or you can swipe back and forth on the picture at the above. So there's a couple of different ways to get to the chapters, but if you've never tried that before, I love doing that. Even if I don't want to skip around in a podcast, I just like to hear, look at what their chapter markers are, because it kind of helps me, anticipate what they're going to be talking about on there. I did have another quick bonus tip. I just posted this yesterday on my appsandlaw.com blog, and you linked to it. Thank you, Jeff, for that. But I loved it because we talked about this. Keynote, the Keynote application for Mac and for iPhone and iPad was updated, I think a couple of weeks ago or so, at the end of September. And they give you the ability to add live video inside a Keynote presentation. And it took me a few days to understand, like, where could this be useful or helpful? So anyway, I just posted a short, like it's an 8-minute video. And what I loved about it quickly is I did it all from the iPad, Jeff. Like, I literally had slides, and then I added my own video in there, and I recorded the iPad screen through the built-in screen recorder on the iPad. And then I had 2 or 3 different videos that I just simply linked together in the iMovie app on the iPad. So this is all for free, built into the iPad. I didn't even have, the audio's not the best because I didn't use an external microphone, but I didn't need to necessarily, and the video is already there. The video could be better, the audio could be better, but if you just need to create a quick little video for a client or a colleague, or share with a group, it's a really neat way that you can do this both on the iPad and the iPhone. So
I want to compliment you on this video, because when we talked about this feature the other couple weeks ago, I understood it in theory, but I didn't really get it.
Right.
And when I watched your video describing it and showing it in action, suddenly good. I got it. Like, number one, now I really understand what this feature does. And number two, you did a nice job of coming up with examples of when you might want to use this feature, which has made my brain start to turn. And so now I'm thinking about when will I want to do this?
Right.
And so this is, if for anyone that does Keynote presentations with any regularity, you absolutely need to understand how this feature works so that you can decide when it's appropriate for you to use it. So I really recommend folks check out this video. You did a great job with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, so now finally, how about let me share the tip that I was planning on sharing this week anyway, which admittedly, this is a little bit obscure because I found it and I've used it and tested it. I don't know how often that I would use it, but it can come in helpful for one reason, and I'll tell you in a moment. Everybody knows how to mute themselves when you're on a phone call on the iPhone, right? There's a nice, beautiful, big mute button right there in the upper left corner when you're on a call. I use that all the time, especially if I have to like cough or something, or, I want to get up and walk around or something to that effect. I will mute that. But there is a hold option on here as well. Now, I encounter this a little bit if I'm talking with somebody and I want to add another caller to the group. If I'm talking to the person and I hit add call, that little plus button there, that will not quite yet put the original caller on hold until I dial the next person, right? And I hit call. That then puts the first person on hold while I talk to the second person, and then I can merge the calls together. So I run into the hold function in that way. However, I did not know this, but if you tap and hold on the mute button when you're in a phone call, now, the only thing is it takes about 4 or 5 seconds for this to happen, because I think they don't want to have an accidental press. But if you tap and hold on the mute button for about 4 to 5 seconds, it will put the phone call on hold. Now, the biggest difference that I see here is that when you mute yourself on a phone call, the other person cannot hear you, but you can still hear them talking, right? But if you put the call on hold, you can't hear them and they can't hear you. So that effectively puts the call on hold, like the old, hold that we remember from the old, I guess, rotary phones, or, the punch button phones that we typically use. So I do see that I may use this ever so often, just because if I really want it to be on hold and I need to do something or talk to somebody coming in, I don't want the audio coming out of my phone. I will tap and hold that mute button for about 4 to 5 seconds, goes into hold. and nobody can hear anything at that point, and I can do whatever business I need to do. And then you simply just tap it again, quickly tap it, and it comes back from on hold. It unholds it, takes it off a hold on there. So that's, now I know this works with AT&T. I've tested, and I think it works with T-Mobile. It may not work on Verizon or Sprint. I haven't been able to test it all, but I've just seen some people say because it's a different technology that they use, that it may not work quite the same in this aspect. And then I've also seen that some people say that when you put a person on hold, they will hear some music, like some random music. I don't know what it is. I haven't encountered that. Everybody that I've tested this with says they don't hear anything. It's just silence. But if that happens, that's perfectly okay. Apparently that's how it was designed, at least at some point on there. So that's my tip. Put in a call on hold. It's a little obscure, but I can see where it could be helpful.
Yeah, no, great tip. I had no idea that you could hold down that mute button and have something different happen. And
right.
And like you say, I like the use case. If someone walks in and like I'm on speakerphone and I want to talk to the person that's there in real life, not only do I want to mute myself, but I don't want the person walking in the room to necessarily hear anything
exactly
said. But so that's a great feature. I'm glad.
Good. Okay. Well, you make me feel a little bit better that it could be useful then.
Yeah. So
that's great.
My tip for today is, and I got this from one of the things I posted to, you have it on the screen now, is Tim Hardwick at Mac Rumors came up with a list of 50 tips that work in iOS 15.
Yeah,
and
these
so
are good.
with 50 tips, there's a ton in here that are useful.
Yeah.
And some of them some of them are more a feature than a tip, and many people know about them, but others are true tips that I just really did not know about. And one of them that jumped out at me, because I just had no idea, for a long time, you have been able to change the text size on your iPhone. So to make things more legible. But the reason that I haven't played around with this feature very much for the years and years and years it's been available is that if you change it traditionally, it would be changed in every single app.
Right,
and some apps just look totally bizarre if you make the text too big. And so as a result, I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to use this feature. So what I learned this week is that if you go to, you can actually do it on an app by app basis. And there's two steps to it. Step one is you want to add a little dongle, the icon to your control center. And the way that you do that is you go to the settings app, and you go to Control Center, and you'll have all the little things that you can add, like, Shazam and flashlight and calculator. And one of the things that you can add is text size. And it looks like two little, it's like a little A and a big letter A right next to each other. So first thing you want to do is add that to your Control Center. Now, once it's in your Control Center, you can go to an app. Like, let's say, for example, when I use the Notes app, or maybe just like today when I use the Notes app, I want the text to be really big so that I can really see that note from far away as I'm using it, who knows, as a teleprompter or something like that you wanted to make it real visible. While you're in the Notes app, then just pull down the Control Center or come up from the bottom if you have an older iPhone, but invoke the Control Center and then tap the button, and you will have a choice to make the text size bigger in all apps, which is what I don't want to do, or just in this app. And then that app, you can make it like crazy big, like, clown car, huge big, or just a little bit bigger. So it's a little bit more legible. And I think this is totally cool. And so now that I know this, I'm going to start exploring changing text size either bigger or smaller.
Oh, that's so great.
In my test this week, it doesn't work in every app. For example, the Facebook app, it doesn't seem to work in Facebook. But and because if you want to make Facebook really small so that it doesn't bother you as much, all the bad stuff in there, that does not work.
Right.
But it does work obviously it works in all the built-in Apple apps. So it's just another one of these things. It's a quiver of knowledge to keep with all of your arrows that, when there's a time when you want an app to be just a little bit bigger, now you can do it on a per app basis, and you can just do it for a period of time.
Brilliant.
And then do it for today. And then at the end of the day, I no longer need my Notes app to be big. And so I'm going to put it back to the normal tab size. So, and that is just one of the 50 tips that he has here. So
there's some
really
good ones.
Check out this post if you want to see there's some more.
I wish you hadn't linked to it now, because I want to steal some of these for in the news podcast, and now everybody's going to see it. But my goodness, thank you for that. I was the exact same way, Jeff. I didn't change the text size because I knew that I could in the past, but it changed everything. And it's like, no, I don't want everything to be changed on the text size. But now that I can do it per app,
you just want it in your Twitter app, or you just want it in the Notes app, or you just want it in this app. So very cool.
Excellent tip on there. Okay, great. Yeah, and now you have to update your tip post. We're going to keep adding to them.
Maybe I'll wait another 21 episodes before I do that.
I know. So. We'll do that. All right, Jeff, thanks as always, my friend, for joining me today. This is great. Lots and lots of tips. It's great. Okay, so we'll see you next week then.
Bye-bye, Brett. See you, everybody.